Dopamine release. Dopamine plays a multifaceted role in the central nervous system, contributing critically to motivation, reward valuation, executive functioning, and motor regulation. Consequently, diminished dopaminergic release or impaired dopaminergic signaling can precipitate a broad constellation of cognitive, affective, and behavioral disturbances. Reduced dopamine availability is frequently associated with attenuated motivational drive, diminished reward sensitivity, and difficulty initiating or sustaining goal-directed behavior. These deficits are often accompanied by anhedonia, affective blunting, and a general reduction in subjective well-being. Low dopamine states may also manifest as profound mental and physical fatigue, even in the absence of sleep disruption, as well as impairments in attention, working memory, and higher-order executive processes that depend on prefrontal dopaminergic modulation. In cases where dopaminergic pathways implicated in motor control, particularly nigrostriatal circuits, are compromised, individuals may exhibit psychomotor slowing, rigidity, or tremor. Additionally, reductions in dopamine can heighten susceptibility to craving rapidly rewarding stimuli such as highly palatable foods, digital media, or other behaviors that produce acute dopaminergic surges. Etiologically, low dopamine may arise from chronic stress exposure, circadian dysregulation, major depressive states, ADHD-related neurotransmission anomalies, withdrawal from certain substances, or neurodegenerative processes such as those characterizing Parkinsonian syndromes. A range of behavioral and environmental interventions can support more adaptive dopaminergic function. Sleep is particularly consequential. Dopaminergic receptor systems undergo critical resetting during the sleep cycle, and even modest sleep deprivation yields measurable decrements in dopamine receptor availability and responsivity. Regular physical exercise, especially high-intensity or interval-based regimens, has been shown to enhance both dopamine release and receptor density across relevant neural circuits. Likewise, chronic stress reduction through mindfulness practices, controlled breathing, contemplative activity, or environmental enrichment can mitigate the stress-mediated suppression of dopamine synthesis and release. Nutritional intake of tyrosine-rich foods provides the necessary biochemical substrate for maintaining normative dopamine production, though dietary modulation alone has limited capacity to markedly elevate dopaminergic tone. Engagement in intrinsically meaningful or mastery-oriented activities fosters more stable dopaminergic signaling than reliance on highly stimulating behaviors, which tend to produce maladaptive dopamine spikes followed by compensatory decreases in motivational capacity. Social connectedness and regular exposure to natural light further support healthy dopaminergic regulation through both direct and indirect neurobiological mechanisms. Conversely, habitual overconsumption of highly stimulating digital or sensory experiences can dysregulate reward processing by repeatedly triggering steep, short-lived dopamine elevations that ultimately degrade the system's sensitivity. It is essential to distinguish between reduced dopamine release and dopaminergic receptor downregulation, as these phenomena represent distinct neurobiological processes. Low dopamine involves insufficient presynaptic production or release, whereas receptor downregulation reflects diminished postsynaptic responsiveness, often following prolonged exposure to high-intensity dopaminergic stimulation. Although the behavioral manifestations may overlap, the mechanisms and trajectories of these conditions differ meaningfully. Dopamine-related dysfunction also presents differently across clinical contexts such as ADHD and major depressive disorder. ADHD is characterized primarily by inefficient dopaminergic signaling in prefrontal circuits responsible for attentional control and executive function, resulting in difficulty sustaining effort on low-stimulation tasks despite potentially normal or variable baseline dopamine levels. In contrast, depression typically involves more global reductions in dopaminergic activity, often in concert with disruptions in serotonergic and noradrenergic systems, leading to anhedonia, psychomotor retardation, diminished reward anticipation, and pervasive mood disturbance. Although comorbidity can blur these distinctions, the underlying neurobiological patterns remain differentiable and carry significant implications for diagnosis and intervention.